Hello and welcome to another edition of Motor Cars Enthusiasts. Right off the bat on today's show, FCA is back in the news for some diesel scandal action. Yes, we've heard it from a number of different manufacturers before, but now FCA is in trouble as well. Not only is some of their heavy-duty diesel vehicles may be in trouble over the situation, but now we're hearing the little small diesel that actually goes into the Ram 1500 and the Grand Cherokee is in this situation as well. Now the trick is this, there's somewhat of some gray area when it comes to diesel emissions testing, and apparently you can do a tad bit of fudging as long as you're upfront about it with the regulators, and that is apparently where FCA has gone wrong, where they weren't upfront with the regulators. Now those regulators are quite upset, so it's going to be interesting to see just how much trouble the old Fiat Chrysler Automobiles is actually in this situation, and we'll definitely keep you in tune of what we hear. Next up on the list, more little goodies about the whole John Cena situation, and if you haven't heard this particular story, it's somewhat of an interesting one. Mr. Cena took delivery, got on the short list of the brand new Ford GT in late last year, in fact in the fall of last year. But Mr. Cena kept it less than 30 days before he actually sold it. Well, apparently not only is the Ford Motor Company actually suing John Cena, where Cena's lawyers are basically saying that there is no documentation where he signed basically saying that you couldn't sell the car in a certain amount of time, which is why the lawsuit actually exists against Mr. Cena. Well, apparently not only that, but Ford Motor Company is actually suing the dealership. Yes, the dealership, not that he bought it from, but the dealership he sold it to. He didn't sell it to an individual, he sold it to an actual dealership. Now this dealership is claiming that they actually flipped the car before Ford ever came to him, even though in the paperwork for the Ford lawsuit, they're claiming the vehicle was in preparations to be delivered to its new owner in dealer prep mode. And that's when the actual lawsuit started, even though the dealership claims that the car was already gone by the time the lawsuit came down. So Ford's basically got a lawsuit against Cena and against the dealership. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because nobody knows what happened to this Ford GT because it's vanished. I'm assuming that the person who actually purchased it from the dealership basically was maybe a big John Cena fan. Even though John Cena's name isn't on the title, maybe there is some old paperwork where it is on there somewhere. But the vehicle is still registered underneath the dealer's name and not underneath the new owner's name, so they really don't know where this vehicle is. Granted, they could actually go after the dealership to actually get them to release that information, but there may be some privacy law that may keep that from actually happening as well. It's somewhat of a similar story, the place where I was over last weekend, the Mecum auction in Indianapolis, Indiana. A brand new 2017 Ford GT crossed the block. And if you want to, you can check out the video. I just uploaded it tonight to the Facebook page. And that particular situation is brought up. Not the Cena situation, but the fact that Ford Motor Company won't let you sell the vehicles. Dana Mecum, the owner of Mecum Auctions, actually got up to the podium and made an announcement to the crowd that the vehicle was for sale. They have jumped through all the hoops as far as the regulators and the lawyers were concerned to actually be able to sell the vehicle to the highest bidder, claiming too that if Ford Motor Company wants the car back, they can bid on it themselves. This thing went for an eye-watering amount of money. The video isn't the greatest. I'm in a bunch of a big crowd, but you do get somewhat of some close shots of the GT as it kind of nestles through the crowd before getting locked up, or at least putting in the main podium behind ropes and everything. Funny thing was, even when I went back to the Sunday part of that auction, that vehicle was still there. I would have got that vehicle off the premises right quick if that was my particular brand new GT, but we'll have to wait and see this whole Cena situation and that dealership as well. There's probably a lot more to come. Next up on the list, Tesla making some news. Elon Musk's actually going to Twitter to announce that there's going to be a new Model 3, a high-performance Model 3, which couldn't have got me any more excited. Let's hear it. It's going to be all-wheel drive with twin electric engines, one front, one rear, even though they can be decoupled from each other, making it two-wheel drive. But you can also run it in full four-wheel drive. It's going to gain some range. Supposedly, the performance is really going to go through the roof. Now, the trick of the deal is it's going to cost quite a bit more, close to $80,000. But here's another little trick. If you hear Elon Musk making some big proclamation or a bunch of noise about whatever, chances are it's somewhat of a smokescreen. Remember when the semi-truck actually debuted, and then all of a sudden in the clear blue sky, when that thing debuted, all of a sudden, holy crap, there's the Tesla Roadster. A lot of that was somewhat of a smokescreen deal, basically put on by Tesla, even though they were ready to actually announce that new Roadster. But they actually put it out there to try to cover up some bad stuff that was going on with the Model 3 as far as its production was concerned, which they're still having troubles producing this particular machine. And I think that's what the whole Twitter message was due, to try to cover up the soon-to-be Consumer Reports report that I'm assuming Mr. Musk had already gotten wind of. Consumer Report has basically called this vehicle a not recommended vehicle for you to purchase. You may remember its big brother, the Model S, which supposedly broke the scale and was the most highly numbered tested vehicle that Consumer Reports had ever done. And then CR actually kept the vehicle for about a month and had so many problems with it, they ended up taking it from the recommended list to the do not recommend list. And the poor old Model 3 is basically starting off on the bad foot. A lot of fit and finish issues. There's a lot of problems as far as controls are concerned. And the horrific braking distance that everybody seems to be talking about right now. High-performance cars with real sticky tires, carbon ceramic brakes can stop well down into the 90 feet range. The old Model 3 takes 152 feet to actually come to a stop. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of cars that actually are slower or take more distance to actually slow down than this. So again, I think the whole high-performance version of the Model 3 was basically a smokescreen by Elon Musk, even though it probably will exist one day if this deal doesn't actually implode. But I think it was a little bit to try to take some of the shine off that Consumer Reports report. But it'll be interesting to see what happens to the Model 3 heading into the future. And now that we kind of talked about a bunch of goofy news and sad news and maybe some bad news there is, it's time for a little bit of funny. Here's a picture of the fire extinguisher mounted in the brand new Remet Concept 2. Now the leather strap that restrains the fire extinguisher in its actual place has got a little nod to the old Grand Tour's Richard Hammond. Remember when Hammond wrote off one of the only 7 Concept 1s in one of the earlier episodes of the last season of the Grand Tour? Basically, the leather strap has got embossed on it where it says, in case of hill climb, extinguish fire. It's a nice little dig to poor Richard Hammond. It's been kind of an interesting little give and take between the folks over at Remet and Mr. Hammond. Thankfully, Hammond was okay in the incident, and again, this is a pretty funny little deal. If you want to get a better shot of this deal, I'm going to put up a high-res photograph on the old Motor Cars Enthusiast Facebook page if you want to check it out for yourself, just exactly what it says. It's pretty entertaining. And that's all there was that I thought was worth talking about for this edition of Motor Cars Enthusiast. Don't forget to like us over on the Facebook page, putting up a ton of videos that I shot over at the Mecum auction. I got a ton more. I think I went a little bit too crazy on that deal, so there's going to be a ton more videos that are going to come out over the next several days. Also, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you can do so at any time and get the first dibs on the brand new shows soon as they come out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again real soon.